Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and I want to talk about Thomas Edison and cigarettes and smoking in general. Thomas Edison hated cigarettes. He always hated cigarettes and went out of his way to discourage anyone who worked with him from smoking cigarettes. Now, the thing is, cigarettes were bad as far as he was concerned. He wrote a letter to Henry Ford at one point just talking about the absolute horrors of the cigarette and how it turns you into a moral degenerate and makes you slack and makes you do bad work and you can't think and it destroys your brain, all kinds of stuff like that. Now, of course, cigarettes weren't good for you. Of course, that didn't stop the Edison Company from doing the first cigarette advertisement in history on film, which is interesting if you think about it. But Thomas Edison hated cigarettes, and he would persecute anyone he caught smoking a cigarette. In fact, there was a chance you would be terminated if he was in the right mood. But the thing is, sometimes Edison, especially in his later years, after World War I, he might be walking around and he'd see a pack of cigarettes, and he would grab that pack and go charging. And Edison liked to go charging, as it were, and running all the way to the front, right by the time clock at the entrance of his laboratory. And then take a pin with a note saying some degenerate has lost his pack and stick it into the wall, and then walk off in a huff. Well, usually the person that owned the cigarettes would find them and replace the pack of cigarettes with a cigar and put the pin right through the cigar and leave it that way until Edison saw it, and then Edison would go nuts. Edison smoked cigars all the time, and he chewed tobacco. He chewed tobacco from the time he was about 10 years old. In fact, he filled out a longevity survey around 1930. He couldn't get any question right, but he got his smoking right. So he started smoking around the age of 10 and chewing tobacco around the age of 10. And fascinating to read. Basically around 10. I'm not sure if it's 11 or something like that, but I think it was right around 10 years of age. The thing is also that Edison chewed tobacco constantly, and he would always be spitting all over the place. I recall years ago, Theodore Edison talked about the laboratory after his father's passing, that they had to throw away most of the rugs because they stunk to high heavens. Because, well, he wasn't quite so neat about his chewing, as it were. He would spit in books, spit on his clothes. He even got an honorary degree and spit on his gown. Just the way he was. But cigarettes were bad. Cigars were noble, and chewing tobacco was fine. He went camping in 1921, and one of the participants in that camping trip was President Warren G. Harding. And Thomas Edison and Warren Harding both smoked cigars, and both chewed tobacco. And the two of them both split a chaw of tobacco, each taking a shot and tearing it off with their teeth and having a grand old time. Well, after that camping trip, for a long time, as you went into the main entrance where the time clock was in West Orange, there was a table set up with a little glass dome over it, and in the middle of that dome was that half-chewed chaw of tobacco that President Harding and Thomas Edison had shared. It was pretty disgusting, but Edison was pretty proud of that thing, and it was there for quite a while. Now, Edison annoyed a lot of people with his ideas about smoking and giving people who smoked a hard time. Well, one of them really got upset and decided to get even with Thomas Edison. Now, Thomas Edison had a series of frames put up around his office and other areas that had a quote by Sir Joshua Reynolds, which went basically, and I'm not sure if I got this right, I was thinking of it and writing it down: there is no expedient to which a man will resort to avoid the true labor of thinking. I'm basically thinking it's close to it. I'm trying to figure it out. But basically, its translation: it's amazing how hard someone will go to avoid the true labor of thinking. And And one of those fellows who got upset about cigarettes put a big paper sign with a quote above it saying, like using someone else's quote, ? Edison blew a fuse when he saw that. But the battles continued. He always got upset about cigarettes through the rest of his life. But if he chewed tobacco, that was fine. If he smoked, he had an assistant named Paul Kosakov who worked for him. And Paul was pretty upset because he was worried that Edison would be upset about his pipe smoking. But Edison didn't give him too much trouble over. He would joke about it occasionally. But, Charles, smoked a pipe around his father, but he would sneak cigarettes when his father wasn't looking. But that's the way it was with Edison. Edison had his own peculiarities, and one of them was cigarettes. He hated them. And if you smoked cigars and chewed tobacco, you were all right with Thomas Edison.